I'm sure we're all aware of, or we all at least know by now, that Manchester United were obsessed with Carlos Baleba over the summer. So was Ruben Amorim. We've been linked to this guy for a very long time, and we tried to pursue him in the summer. He was Ruben Amorim's number one midfield target, Man United's number one midfield target, and Brighton priced us out of a move. We were desperate to get a deal done. And we didn't even bring in an alternative, which I think is pretty crazy. But I think with so little games this season, it's probably not the end of the world. I think had we been in Europe, it would have been awful. But Baleba's always been number one. Baleba was number one in September, October, despite a poor start to the season. November time, it looked like Elliot Anderson was number one, but we know that Ruben Amorim has always preferred Baleba. Baleba has been United's dream midfield target. He's been their number one midfield target for a really long time. But there's now talk that he might no longer even be a target. Man United have been so put off by his recent form, so put off by this crazy price tag that Brighton are asking for, that they're looking elsewhere. After Elliot Anderson, they're looking at Tonali, they're looking at Broad rather than Carlos Baleba. He was who Amorim wanted. Amorim has left. Have United walked away from Baleba, or is it a bit of a negotiation tactic to see if Brighton will actually lower the price tag? Because there's rumours that Brighton, after his year, they might be willing to sell him. Now, I wouldn't completely rule out Carlos Baleba, and I think if you can get him for 50, 60 million pounds, you take a punt on it for sure. I think he's a phenomenal young player. But Christopher Vivell, as we know, obviously told Manchester United to go and get Sesko in the summer. Amorim wanted Gyökeres, Jason Wilcox wanted Delap. And I think out of the three, I'm pretty glad that we did get Sesko. Christopher Vivell has now got a few other names on his list that he's telling Manchester United, oh, maybe have a look at them. Maybe have a look at them. So we're going to talk about who Manchester United's new Baleba replacement could be. Obviously, Elliot Anderson, Tonali is the dream, but what are the other names we're looking at? Andrew Santos, Agoume, Sangare, all linked. Who does Vivell want? And more. We're also going to talk about a news report about the players sort of feeling that they'd let down Michael Carrick, and we're going to talk about the De Zerbi and Nagelsmann news and the latest news on the manager front. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news, and update roundup show, where I'm going to round up all the latest Manchester United news into a 10-minute video for you guys. If you are new and you want to stay up to date with all the latest Manchester United news, feel free to subscribe down below every single evening, get a 10-minute video rounding up the news, and you're welcome to hit the like button if you enjoy. This has been a crazy long intro, so we're going to dive into the first story, which isn't actually to do with Baleba, midfielder, and Vivell, but to do with the players, Carrick, the fixture list. And then we're going to get into the midfield transfer news, then the manager news. So, the players look like they're finally taking some responsibility rather than blaming everyone else for when Man United underperform. Man United players feel they've let Carrick down with recent performances. Squad blaming slow start on lack of games, big gaps between matches seen as hurting rhythm and intensity in early games, and players aware of issue and they want to fix it quickly. Now, some people say, when we were playing in Europe and we had loads of games, they were saying, we've got too many games, which is why we can't perform at this intensity. Now we've got no games, we're complaining that the lack of games means we can't perform at intensity, is what some people are saying. But I think what people need to understand is we're not playing one game a week. We're playing one game every other week at the moment because of the amount of FA Cup weekends there are. If we're not in Europe, but we had progressed right the way through the last 3 rounds of the FA Cup when we were in the FA Cup quarterfinals, we would have played, 3 more games? So in those 10-day break, 11-day break, 13-day break, and obviously the international break in the Villa game, the 22-day game break, we'd be playing once a week. What we do is we play twice in the same week, 11 days off, twice in the same week again, 13 days off, twice in the same week again, another long break. So I think the players have a point. I think if we were playing once a week, if we just had a game every 7 days, split across, it's absolutely fine. But the problem is, because we're not in the FA Cup, we are having such long breaks that I think it is disrupting momentum. However, the players have got to maybe do some pre-match friendlies, mid-season friendlies, maybe up the intensity in training, maybe have longer training sessions, because we're starting games slow and it's a problem. We've got Villa next. We need to get Champions League football. I'm going to talk about why Champions League football is so important in a minute. We need to do it. Now, let's talk about the Man United transfer plans. Tonali, Anderson are the big midfielders. They're the big names we're looking at. Wharton and Baleba are on that list, but I think Tonali and Anderson is who United definitely want the most. Now, a name we were linked to in the summer was Santos. We actually proposed a Garnacho Santos swap deal. Chelsea didn't want to do it. I think Santos would have been a really good midfield option. I think now Rosinha is in. I think Santos is more likely to stay. I think had Maresca still been here, I think Santos could have gone in the summer. I think Santos will probably stay at Chelsea, but he's a midfielder I would definitely like. And reports are coming out that we're interested in Santos. He's still as a long-term Casemiro replacement. Chelsea like him, but he's not untouchable. He's not untouchable. United are monitoring it. Juventus are monitoring it. Look, if we can get Santos for £34 million, yes, please. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Chelsea would sell Santos for £34 million because Chelsea have sold some absolutely crap players in the past for ridiculous fees. I don't know how they do it, but they always seem to get absolutely crazy fees for their players. Let me read this out for context. They got £52 million for Madueke. They got £30 million for João Felix. They literally got like £30 million for Nkunku. They did nothing for absolutely ages. Leslie Okachuko, they got around 30 million for. Petrovic, they got 25 million pounds for. Even Maatson, they got nearly 40 million for. Gallagher, they got 40 million for. Lewis Hall, who's actually ended up being a steal for Newcastle, but at the time it was a lot of money. They got 30 million for. You know, Chelsea have been very good at selling. I'm pretty sure they even sold Amari Hutchinson for like 25, 30 million after a year in the Championship. Havertz went for 65 million. Mount went for 55 million, even 30 million for Kovacic. You know, Chelsea are very good at selling in recent years. They even got like 40 million for Tammy Abraham, I'm pretty sure, as well. So I don't think they're going to sell a player with the ability of Santos for that cheap. Ben Jacobs said we're looking at Santos. We did look at him in the summer. We do like him. It's one to watch, but Chelsea hard to negotiate with. Now, one that I really think is one to watch because I think it's realistic, Seville wants to sell, and we do like him, is Agoume. Manchester United's interest in Lucien Agoume is real. He's well regarded at United. Vivell has long identified Agoume as a primary target to strengthen midfield this summer. Vivell has kept Agoume on the shortlist since at least 2025. Agoume is one to watch. We looked at him in the summer. I said in the summer, if we get Baleba, I reckon Brighton will go and get Agoume to replace Baleba with. He's very much the Baleba alternative. And I think now United are prioritising Anderson Tonali. I think it would be really smart of United to get one of Agoume or João Gomez, one of Anderson and Tonali, and then the third midfielder could be one of Matheus Fernandes or Bergvall. I think that's the three midfielders to really sort of push on that midfield. And, you know, Agoume is one that Vivell has been keeping an eye on. Vivell likes, and he's also relatively affordable. There's not going to be crazy competition. And I think it just makes sense. It just makes sense from a Baleba. Brighton are going to ask for something crazy like 80 million after a crap season. Why don't we go for Agoume and then put all the money on Tonali, Elliot Anderson? I think that's what United need to do. Now, there's a few other names to be linked to, like Sangare, Forest. Man United are keeping close tabs on Nottingham Forest midfielder Ibrahim Sangare as they plot a potential summer move. I mean, that's again another interesting one to watch. I think his first season at Forest wasn't great, but he's really kicked on this season. Been really good, been just as important as Elliot Anderson. But if we are going to get a Forest midfielder, I will go for Elliot Anderson. But look, today, Sangare, Santos, Agoume, three different midfielders we're being linked to that are a lot more affordable because we keep being linked to Baleba, Wharton, Anderson, Tonali, but none of those are easy deals to do. We're starting to be linked to what I'm going to call more realistic names in midfield. I think our chances of getting a bigger name in midfield depend on Champions League football, which also influences our chances of Bruno staying. It was reported if Manchester United qualify for Champions League football and present Bruno with a very interesting, ambitious project, there's a good chance he could stay. But I think Champions League football and ambition is what we need to keep Bruno, which is why it's so important we beat Villa at the weekend and we push on with our chances of Champions League football. And last but not least, I want to end on manager news. The chances of Bruno staying might not just depend on Champions League football, but the new manager and if he's in the new manager's plans. The new manager could be Carrick, De Zerbi or Nagelsmann, I think, from what we're hearing. De Zerbi is firmly on United's shortlist. He's reported to be keen on the Old Trafford job, and United continue their manager search process. We're not making any decisions yet. We're going to wait to end of April, I think. Maybe even end of May before we make a decision. We want to take our time and get this manager right. But we know De Zerbi's open to the job. We know he's on the shortlist. The other name on the shortlist is Nagelsmann, but Stephen Railson said it's difficult because of the World Cup. He's also under contract at Germany until 2028. United would like a manager sort of in before the tournament, obviously because they're going to miss a bit of pre-season there, and it means we start later and it gives us a disadvantage. And there would be a temporary void at Carrington during the World Cup if we don't have someone like Nagelsmann in, which would be a bit of a blow. But I think the fact that he has a strong relationship with Vivell, he's such a highly rated coach, even though we have a slight disadvantage with Nagelsmann. I feel like United, if they felt that he was the right guy, they'd probably wait for him. I think it's between Carrick, Nagelsmann, De Zerbi. I think that's who it's between. I think our chances of signing a top midfielder depends on the manager's plans and, of course, if we get Champions League football. Anyway, that is your 10-minute Manchester United news, transfer news and update roundup show. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will be back tomorrow. See you next time. Bye.